Good morning, Thailand. This is Voice of the Nation. We run this live program every Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. I'm วิทยาแสงอรุณสวัสดีครับ And together with me is คุณนีราชามาริศักดิ์สวัสดีครับคุณนีน่าครับ
สวัสดีค่ะคุณวิทยา Good morning ค่ะ So Voice of the Nation brings you update and that what's happening in Thailand and I hope you enjoy our program.
To watch the previous episodes of Voice of the Nation, check out YouTube channel at The Nation Thailand and on Facebook page, search The Nation Thailand.
So please stay tuned with us. As for today, on our first half an hour, we have two guests who will come to discuss whether children from 5 to 11 years old should be vaccinated. So our first guest is Associate Professor Shisanu Panjaran, pediatrician from Chulalongkorn Hospital. And our second guest is Dr. Thaniyawan, a lung transplant specialist, Brigham and Women's Hospital, Harvard Medical School.
And let's start our day, the 8th of February 2022, with the development of the Thai-Saudi Arabia relationships.
Yes, that's such a good news. As late last month, Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha visited Saudi Arabia and restored full diplomatic ties after 30 years of frozen relationship linked to the theft of jewels and murdering cases. But after 30 years now, the Crown Prince planned to visit Thailand within this year. Foreign Minister Don Poromatvinai said yesterday that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia will make his first official visit to Thailand later this year. However, the exact dates given for this trip still remains unknown. The Crown Prince will become the first Saudi royal to visit Thailand following the state visit made by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha on 25th to 26th of January. During his visit last month, Crown Prince Salman had conversed personally with Prayut over a state dinner, discussing everything from official topics to Salman's recent purchase of Newcastle Football Club in the Premier League. For this upcoming visit, Thailand will stage a lavish state ceremony for Salman in reciprocations for the welcome given to Prayut during his 2-day stays in the Desert Kingdom. During the visit, officials from both kingdoms will meet to work on various bilateral projects together.
And then
back to Thailand with the rollout of vaccinations in children.
Okay. Moving on from that bilateral relation issues in many countries, whether there is a correlation between death and vaccination in kids. So in Thailand, the government has begun to vaccinate children between the ages of 5 to 11 years old. And a famous Thai doctor noted that although children are at some risk for vaccination, viruses are more dangerous than vaccines.
Yes, the doctor pointed that at the risk ratio difference between boys and girls, and also spoke about a study conducted on teenagers about the side effects found after being vaccinated. But with the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, he adds that it's best to be vaccinated to lower the chance of being severely sick if being infected. So according to leading virologist Dr. Yong Puvarawan said in a Facebook comment on Sunday that children should receive their COVID-19 vaccine despite the risk of them developing myocarditis or inflammations of the heart muscles because of the virus is far more dangerous. He said the ratio of boys at risk of the heart inflammation stood at 1 to 12,361, while that of girls was 10 times lower at 1 for every 144,439. However, most of the symptoms patients had developed mild symptoms and could be cured without requiring treatment. The study was conducted on 400,000 teenagers who had received their first jab and 300 and 20,000 who had received their second jab. Dr. Yong added that with the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, children should receive their jabs to cut down the chance of severe infection. However, it is still up to the parents on whether they want their children to receive a jab or not. The Thai Food and Drug Administration has approved Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccine for children in age 6 and above for parents to choose as an. So far, some of the 29,752 children aged between 5 and 11 have received their jab. The Public Health Ministry recommends 8 weeks before the second jab is administered. Hospitals have set up separate vaccination points for children to ensure the vaccination drives go smoothly. And as on Monday, 11,063 people were giving their first COVID-19 shot in the last 24 hours. So regarding the vaccine, we're still staying on this topic as next we'll be talking to Associate Professor Shisanu Pancharan, pediatricians at Chulalongkorn Hospital, and Dr. Thani Thaniyawan, a lung transplant specialist, Brigham and Women's Hospital, Harvard Medical, on whether should the children be vaccinated. Coming up next.
ทดสอบทดสอบทดสอบทดสอบ ได้ยินไหมครับฮัลโหล
ได้ยินแล้วครับ
ได้ยินแล้วครับโอเคอาจารย์เชิญ
นี่ค่ะ
ครับ so we now setting up live for everyone
ข้างหลัง
ครับ
อยู่นะห้องหมอกำลังลบอยู่
ครับผม
ฟังไม่ดี
How are you all this morning today? In my area, the PM 2.5 is very heavy right now.
in your area in what
In
area
in Rama 2, as usual, as you know, Rama 2 is prone to have the PM 2.5.
See.
Well, at least on my part, it's okay so far. Around this area, is in just next to the U.S. embassy, is quite pretty good.
Have you visited Lumpini Park?
Not this time, but last time I did.
I'm pretty sure that the weather there is good, but it's in the central of Bangkok. So isn't it a bit hazy over there?
Oh, well, maybe it's hazy up here, but the thing is, I might not be able to see it. You have to look further away for you to see all this PM 2.5. But in the vicinity, I don't see anything heavy so far. So maybe that's just me, or it may just be lucky, and we all wear a mask right now, and therefore, you won't be able to sense it that much, which is good in a way.
Dr. Tanika, so while we're waiting for another guest, could you please share your experience working at the in the United States as a doctor,
Well,
as a lung specialist?
It's quite different from Thailand, in which we all specialize in the United States, and there's a lot of specialists. And the area I'm working here is a lung transplant, which is quite is a special way. So there are a lot of experience that I could not get from Thailand, and also a lot of variety of patients in which may have to be on immune suppression, and they are weaker than normal healthy people. And well, that's one of the things that if you use immune suppression medication, you should be able to understand all this immunology. And also part of it, if you understand immunology, you understand vaccines more. And in lung transplant, since they're immune suppressed, we are always dealing with infection. So that's what actually gets me into all this COVID, because we see a lot of patients in this realm that got infected with COVID, and initially there's no guideline for treatment, all these things. So you basically have to summarize all your knowledge and try to come up with a way to treat it. Usually, initially, it's all these guidelines are designed for a regular people who does not have immune problems. So the population I'm dealing with have a lot of immune problem. They're weaker than normal people, and therefore the treatment should be individualized. And there are multiple things that we can do for these patients. And these are things I work on every day.
I guess it's very busy at the moment since the COVID pandemic. But anyway, Associate Dr. Professor Chisano is back. สวัสดีค่ะ Welcome back to the program ค่ะ
Yes. Good morning.
Can you hear us?
My office is very messy, so
สวัส
สวัส
ดี
ดี
ค่ะ
เป็นทางการครับ
It's
ทุก
okay
ท่าน
that's
ครับ
why. Yeah.
So the topic today is about whether should the children from 5 to 11 years old should be vaccinated. As you know that in Thailand, the vaccination campaign in children kicked off already. But many parents have their concerns and whether it is safe for my children, whether is it going to cause a side effects, or should the children be vaccinated since they already have high immune system? So I would like to ask Dr. Chisano first. What do you think about this? Could you please share your point of view and perspective? Whether should children be vaccinated at this stage?
Yeah, there are so many concerns, among parents, and some concerns are rumors and fake news. So that's why the decision cannot be made by the parents. So they have to listen to the government, to the Ministry of Public Health, and also the reliable scientists. So, the drama was found because they choose to listen to rumors and fake news. I believe that the side effect of the vaccines used in small children will be less than older children and adults, since we give only 1/3 of the adult dose for this group of children. So the side effect will be less and less severe.
What about you, Dr. Tani? How is it like in the US? Could you please share your perspective and point of view?
Well, I share Dr. Chisano's concern as well, because everywhere, especially in the United States, there are a lot of fake news and there's a lot of rumors here as well. But the thing is that for the fact, you have to look at the situation here. Since Omicron hit United States, the rate of hospitalization for children is actually skyrocketing. And it's peaked around early January. At that point, most of the people initially thought that, well, Delta might not be that dangerous for children, and they thought so for Omicron initially. But the thing that we are seeing a lot of, actually a double in hospitalization in children who has not been vaccinated. And they're quite sick. They're not just like having a sniffles or sore throat fever or something like that. They're in respiratory failure and requiring mechanical ventilations in the ICU. So this is quite concerning, and therefore the development of the vaccine is very helpful. Moreover, we don't know anything yet about whether they're going to be a long-term side effect from the COVID itself, because we know in adult there's a long COVID, which means even though your body can clear the virus, but your body suffers for a very long period of time, and we don't know that yet for children. Maybe that will affect their development of the brain or other systems, which is quite important as well. Moreover, I'm not sure about the younger children, but I've taken care of the teenager who have multiple system inflammatory syndrome, which is basically a very severe consequence of COVID. They might get COVID initially and they don't have symptoms. They may be completely normal. And then 2 to 6 weeks later, they develop a severe inflammation of their system. They have rashes, they have fever, which is very high. Their lungs may stop working, their kidneys stop working, their heart become inflamed, and their blood pressure may drop to a very severe condition. So they end up in the ICU. And these people are very difficult to treat, and they have long-term side effect from all the medication and all the inflammation they can get. And we know that the vaccine cut down the rate of all these things by at least 90%. So that alone, for me, it's enough, a good reason for the children to be vaccinated. Nobody wants children to be in that particular situation, especially parents. When you compare the side effect of the vaccine, you have to compare the side effect of the vaccine, the side effect of having COVID, and whether your children will have severe consequences like this or not, or will they have long-term development problems, because they always think about the vaccine as, well, maybe we don't know much about the mRNA vaccine yet. Maybe there's something in the future. But if you get COVID, you get a problem right now, right? You may not have children for you to worry anymore if you don't get vaccinated, right? And if your children are one of those who have long-term COVID or have developmental problems, well, that's not a good thing. And we don't even know whether that can be fixed or not. So that's just my perspective here.
So there's a drama whether mRNA is actually good, whether mRNA is dangerous, whether mRNA gonna change, for example, the genes. Like I would like to ask Dr. Chisano first: is mRNA vaccine is it safe for children? Should parents be concerned about that?
Even though it's a new technology, but we believe that we use this technology for the previous vaccines giving to the children. So we think it's pretty safe. The major concerns are not proved at the present time. So I agree with Dr. Tani, stay with the present. Don't look too much in the futures, the concerns that may not happen. I think science cannot explain the major concerns that the parents have about the future complications of this mRNA vaccine.
What about the non-mRNA vaccine, like inactivated vaccine, for example, that we're going to maybe possibly approve, but it has been approved to use it in other countries already? Do you have any views about that, Dr. Chisano?
Yeah, the side effects may be less, but the important part is the kill vaccines cannot prevent Omicron. This is very important. They can reduce the severity, but they cannot prevent Omicron well. As we know, at the present time, mRNA is the best COVID vaccines we have. So I would say mRNA only for children, that will save children from COVID and Omicron.
So Dr. Tanika, could you please share your perspective from a US perspective on that? In the USA, mostly the vaccine, of course, there are mRNA, right? And do you have any dramas about this? People against vaccines, or should the children be vaccinated with mRNA vaccine? Do you have anything like this in the US?
Yeah, obviously, I think all these news spread from the US. Well, to Thailand, in which some people from Thailand send me some of the new links or something like that has some base from the US standpoint. The thing is that people are concerned about mRNA because it's a new vaccine, right? And it enters your cells. But what I'm going to explain here is the mRNA itself is quite vulnerable. If you don't have anything to protect the mRNA vaccine, you put it in like room temperature, it will dissolve. It will just go away. And that's why you have to put it in like a fridge, which has very low temperature, something like that. It's that vulnerable. And people always thought about, what if the vaccines got delivered incorrectly, or maybe the logistic part of it is not that good. Maybe the vaccine may not be that effective. If you think about this, you're actually seeing the fact that the vaccines are quite vulnerable. And in fact, the mRNA vaccine, it enters your cells, it gets transcribed into a spike protein. And after it's done translating it or transcribing it, then it will just be destroyed by the cell. Usually it is gone by the first week. And after it's gone, your body learned the new skill of finding out the virus, which is something. So you can imagine, like, after 1 week, you don't have vaccine left in your system anymore. But what you have is the long-term immunity. So if you think about it this way, I couldn't find a good reason for it to have a long-term side effect. also, some people think it might mess up your DNA or something. Well, the thing is, in your cells, you have two compartments mainly. The one is the nucleus. The nucleus is the room that stores your DNA, and the mRNA doesn't go near that part at all. It stays outside of that part. So how could it get into that nucleus and do something like that, right? It doesn't have the means to go into the nucleus. If you think about this, I would say the viral vector may have more concerns because it has to go into the nucleus first and then translate into mRNA again, and then do the rest of the work. So that would be a concern. And the thing, moreover, in the United States, you see like these children who are unvaccinated are getting sicker, and they're getting hospitalized more and more. And that's the real data that we cannot fake, right? It's everywhere in the news, and we know that those who are vaccinated is not that sick.
Should we call the myth of mRNA?
Well, we can talk about this all day long. It depends on what myth you're talking about. Some people think about, they might cause infertility, or they might cause brain development problems, and so on, which has no basis behind it. And if you think about, well, you don't have the actual data in the future, but at least you should be able to use your understanding, especially medical understanding, to describe the mechanism behind why it could happen. And if you cannot even think about mechanism of how that could happen, well, it's just a myth that you can just create anything. And people always, or some parents or some people who doesn't want to get vaccinated, they just come to us and say, you don't have long-term data. How can you be so sure that won't happen? I would say, well, at least based on current data and current understanding and all the evidence we have, it does not point that way, and we cannot use the data that suggests some trivial thing or some myth to guide us to make decision based on something like that. That
I
would
would
be my
like
perspective.
I would like to ask, because there's questions and concern that the has been developed. They were developed at the stage of the original virus, where the Wuhan virus, basically, but now we have different variants like Delta, Omicron, and all those things. Would it be effective to tackle?
Yeah, the
Omicron,
thing is that we
yes.
have to understand, at least right now, the mRNA vaccine has proven to be effective against all the variants in the past, right? It started from Wuhan, then Alpha, Beta, and so on. So it's still effective. And the reason why that is effective, I think, is because it stimulates some of the very important component of your immune system, which is the cell component called T cell. So T cell fight off the severe infection, to make it easy for people to understand. And if you can stimulate these cells, it doesn't matter how much variability that the virus can be, these cells can still be effective in killing those cells who got infected, so they won't spread to the other part of your body. And that's why I think it's still important.
What about you, Dr. Chisanup?
Yes, I agree with Dr. Tani that the mRNA vaccine is the best at the present time. Until we have Q vaccine, the second generation that can cover Delta and Omicron. So we have no choices at the present time. You have to make decision about the disease that the children will get and the side effect of the vaccine. That I, as a pediatrician, infectious disease specialist who have been working with vaccines for 30 years, we accept it. We accept the side effects. Except myocarditis, that is very uncommon in small children, because we see this in older children and adolescents, and we have passed, the era that we give the vaccine for Thai children age 12 to 18, and myocarditis is very uncommon and self-limited. We treat it, and no or death.
ครับอาจารย์ครับอาจารย์ชื่อสนุครับ talking about the vaccine and also the effects, the symptoms of COVID-19 are supposed to be like different in children at different ages, or I mean compared to the adults too, the symptoms that you
I would
find.
say that generally speaking, children who are infected with coronavirus, the symptoms may be less than adults, but it may be severe, as Dr. Tani said, that in chronically ill children, in obese children, and even healthy children, we cannot tell that which child will get infected and be severe or not. But the problem is the late complication that is very serious, even though it's not very common. Like we say, long COVID that we see in adult that can be found in children also, and diabetes. So there are so many late long complications that will happen after getting infected. So don't look at only the symptoms of COVID itself, but you have to look at the long-term complications. And also, the family that have children infected with coronavirus is very, confusing. They affect the family so much. They have to find the hospital beds to get the children in. There are so many, turmoil in this situation. So don't look only the symptoms, but look the effects after the children being infected with coronavirus.
I see ครับอาจารย์ครับ and do the new variants impact children differently?
Oh yes, we expect that Omicron will affect children because they are not immune and they spread rapidly. And we put the children at home, learn from home. Also, adults work from home. But as we learn from Delta era, that the infections occur in families. So it's not, there are very few clusters in the society, but the family. So the family members will get the virus, even though they get vaccinated and they don't have any symptoms, and bring this germ to the children. The children are not immune, so they get infected. So we expect that in the Omicron era, children will be the key population that are infected.
I see. And 5 to 11 years old children getting vaccinated, they now meeting the target set. Because people may think that we still have no real reason to get the children to get the vaccinated, but we already have the target too. So what do you think about this 5 and 11 years old children getting vaccinated? It meeting the targets?
I have been waiting for this vaccine for a few years as a pediatrician. I don't think that there will be lots of drama news that make the society confused. But, however, I think the parents need to make a decision. We have been waiting for this vaccine, and we start to vaccinate in February, starting with chronically ill patients that give vaccinations in the hospitals. Now, this week, we just start to give vaccination in schools for healthy children. So pediatricians work so hard to be at the schools to make sure that if there is immediate complications from vaccines, that we believe we will not see it. Okay, but pediatricians will take care of this. But we have to look at the side effects that will occur about a few days after vaccination, such as fever, rash, diarrhea, myalgia, and so on. But these side effects can be found in other vaccines and also found in adults like us. So if we accept these side effects, I think it's very safe. Next, we have to watch for myocarditis, even though that myocarditis will be very less, okay, in this group of children. But we have to watch for palpitation and chest pain in small children. If they have symptoms like this, go to the hospital and the pediatrician will take care of them. But for long-term complications, I wouldn't say anything.
So as for Dr. Tani, what do you think about, do the new variants impact children differently? And also, how is the vaccination situation in the US going on right now? Could you please share your view on this?
Well, first of all, I'm no pediatrician here, so I have to look at the data, or maybe ask my friend who is a pediatrician. And Dr. Chison knows more about that than me. So the thing is, in the United States, we know that the children got infected so much and they got hospitalized in a record high as compared to when there was a Delta variant. Maybe that's just because children react differently, or maybe just because Omicron spread so rapidly. And the children just got affected more because of the numbers that we're seeing. People are sick. So I think in that regards, I cannot be so sure whether the children will be affected more because of this Omicron variant or not. But we are seeing the number of hospitalization children go up. Second thing is the vaccination situation here. We see in the United States, there are about 30 million children in the age of 5 to 11 years old, and about maybe right now 1/3 of them are vaccinated. So that's a situation right now. The thing is, in the first 2 months, the rate of vaccination among these population went up quite high, but then it dropped back down and just hover around some numbers. And I think part of it is because the people, and especially parents who are concerned about the virus more than the vaccine, they get all their children vaccinated right up front. And now they're just trickling in just because of misinformation, and people are spreading news about these concerns. And therefore, in the United States, since the United States is the country where all this information are readily available. So that means both the correct information and the incorrect information. Even if people in the incorrect information side said, well, that's it's warrant for them to speak it up here. And they even arrange for political parties to talk about all these things. And we have seen a lot of videos went viral and they're circulating around the United States and also in Thailand about all these things. And that's a concern so far. And that's the situation right now, which I think we cannot vaccinate all the children just because of this.
But from that, after being vaccinated, are there any reported about the severe side effect in children in the US?
No. So I see in kids 5 to 11 years old, we've been vaccinating them, I think since May last year, and there's no report of severe side effect. And so far we know that mRNA vaccine may cause inflammation of the heart or the lining of the heart itself, but it seems to be quite self-limited. We usually, from the report, it's a 4-day treatment and hospitalization in total, usually. And then these children are followed up for a long-term side effect, and they don't have any. And therefore, this is why the United States still recommend the vaccines in this age group. And moreover, they're looking into approval for children younger than that, from 6 months old to 4 years old, using about 1/10 of the Pfizer vaccine. And the research has been done already. And they finished this research a long time ago. However, in Thailand, I have a little bit of concern about the killed vaccine or live attenuated vaccine or something like that, especially killed vaccine, because I do not see a lot of data about it. Maybe I didn't look into this because United States, we do not have killed vaccine. So maybe in the context of Thailand, we have to look into that further. But according to my review, we know that in adults, the killed vaccine does not help much. and people can still get very sick despite getting a full vaccination with the Q vaccine. We have more data about of the mRNA vaccine, both the efficacy and the side effect and the real world data. We have more of that than the Q vaccine. So that's just my concern for Thai people, especially now we are approving this for kids and using the same dosage for the adult.
The Q vaccine, is it inactivated vaccines?
No, it's not. It's the vaccine. You mean you use the entire virus, but it's already dead. So to me, to explain this a little further, killed vaccine is just like you read a book. So the killed vaccine is a virus that is dead, and it has multiple components that your immune system can react to. It's just like reading a book, like maybe a 100 pages for it, and then you have to take an exam, reading all these things, because the exam can be from any pages. But mRNA vaccines is quite specific to part of that book. Let's say, hey, maybe you read this 10 pages, and then the exam will be around this 10 pages, and you can do it. So if you focus on something, then you might be able to mount a good memory to it, especially immune system. You mount a memory to the spike protein, and this way it may be more effective rather than having to read the entire book just to have one exam. And the thing is, if you use a Q virus, it's just like you're reading a book one time, because the virus does not replicate itself, unlike the real infection. Because if you get a real infection, the virus gets in your body, it replicates, and you can learn from multiple part of the virus. But I don't suggest you go get the virus infection, just because then you will be dealing with possible side effect or other consequences which you do not want you yourself or your kids to have it. And that just the differences between getting a real virus, getting a killed virus vaccine, or getting an mRNA vaccine in terms of efficacy for me to make it a little bit easier for people to see why it's not working that well.
So in another word, is you recommend the mRNA for its best effectiveness, basically.
Basically, if you have enough vaccine, you should go for this.
Okay. Would you like to share your view, Dr. Shisanu?
Yeah. Now you have to make a decision, because the government will have 3 regimens or regimes to choose. At the beginning, they will give 2 doses of Pfizer. But as parents have major concerns about the mRNA vaccine, especially 2 doses of Pfizer. So they have 2 other choices. 2 doses of Sinovac that did not help, and Sinovac and Pfizer, to decrease the number of Pfizer from 2 to 1. That may help, but there are very limited data about this interchange. So if you accept mRNA, get 2 doses of Pfizer. If you are afraid that the second dose of Pfizer may cause myocarditis, choose Sinovac Pfizer. If you don't want any mRNA vaccine, go ahead and choose the last choice that is not so good, and in the future you will get mRNA anyway. So it's pretty hard for the parents to make a decision. I don't know why the government have 2 other choices. I don't totally agree with this, but that's the way.
That's right. But well, the parents have a lot of concern about what you just said, myocarditis. Then last, what would be your advice to the parents on this?
There are 2 groups of parents. The first one, they can make decisions. Go ahead and get it. And I think that pediatricians will take care of your children really well. I believe that they will be safe from vaccination, and they will be protected from COVID. The second group is the one who hesitate to make a decision. You have to learn more about the information that should be reliable information, but don't wait so long. COVID is everywhere at the present time, especially Omicron. The anti-vaccine group. Anyway, I will not get vaccination. So protect yourself well and be lucky.
As of today's Thailand infection rate is over 10,000 people already. What about you, Dr. Tani? What would be your advice to the parents who are concerned about whether my kids should get vaccination or not, whether the vaccine is safe for my kids?
Well, I would say a bottom line is, if it were my children or my kids, my nephew, my niece, I would say go get mRNA vaccine right now. However, I understand there's concerns everywhere about parents, like Dr. Chisanu said, and I would agree that you might have to think about them as well. If you can make a decision, go get mRNA vaccine, go get it. If you think about that as maybe they have potential side effect that you are not accepting, Sinovac might be your other options, but they are not as effective as we know. We have always, we know that they have limited data. And last but not least, obviously, if you do not want any vaccination, just get lucky. I think luck is very important these days. If you get lucky, you might not get infected, or you might get very mild symptoms. And you have to hope that you do not have a weird side effect, such as multiple system inflammatory syndrome after infection, or you don't have long COVID in kids, or you don't have any unknown side effect about your development. I hope that way, and we know that probably you have to wear masks, teach your children to wash your hands and those kind of things. And children younger than 2, well, they cannot wear a mask anyway, but you have to at least prepare them for what is the safest way to survive in this world, because I do not think coronavirus right now is just probably the thing that tells you there's something like this in the world that might happen again, and there's no one who can guarantee this Omicron will be the last wave of it. And even if it is a last wave of it, who can guarantee maybe there's a new virus somewhere out there that could attack us like this? And we just have to be prepared. And now we are quite prepared. We learn a lot about them as well right now.
Well, I hope can it be in another 100 years later, not any soon, please. Otherwise, we can't do anything. Okay, and that's it for today. So in conclusion, I think getting vaccinated is actually better than not having vaccinated at all. But it's also a personal choice, and it's also up to the parents' considerations. But as you both say that, getting vaccinated, having vaccines inside the body help prevent severe conditions, but it still doesn't help prevent the to get infected. So we will leave it to the parents. But thank you for sharing your information for this morning. It was very informative, and I hope that if the parents are watching right now, I hope they would have that choice, or this interview would help them and guide them to make the decision for their children. So thank you again, Dr. Chisanu and Dr. Tani. And I hope to have you back on my program again. And for today, สวัสดีค่ะ
ขอบคุณมากครับ
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye ค่ะ
บ๊ายบายครับ Well, that's very informative, and I think if I'm a parent, I'm a parent now, I think we have to think a lot. And another thing that we have to be careful, because coming up will be just like in the US, that a lot of news coming, like the death of kids with this
The
and
drama.
that. I think after this, we're gonna see this more, this kind of news more in the reporting, some things like that. So for the past year, we've been facing many restrictions, from lockdown to eateries being closed, or just one take out only, and we have to wear the mask. And also the latest developments of the Center of COVID-19 Situation Administration may consider easing restrictions to help Thais return to their normal lives as much as the virus permits. This may be good news many are waiting for. The Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration may consider further easing restriction despite the rising number of COVID-19 cases. Government spokesman Kun Thanakon Wangbull Kongchana said on Monday that the center is expected to review measures for controlling the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and is likely to relax restrictions so that businesses and people can resume their normal life as much as possible. The review of measures is expected at the next meeting of the center. The spokesman also said Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has instructed all concerned government agencies to monitor the COVID-19 situation after the number of daily cases passed the 10,000 mark. But the Public Health Ministry has assured the Prime Minister that although the Omicron variant can spread much faster than the previous Delta strain, the new strain did not cause serious illness, and the number of fatalities and seriously ill patients had not increased much. The ministry has assured the Prime Minister that the public health system can cope with seriously ill patients to prevent more fatalities, while people with asymptomatic disease and mild conditions can enter a home isolation program. Since he has been assured that the situation is under control, Prayut has instructed all agencies to explain to the people that they can live with the COVID-19 virus with safety when they strictly comply with protection measures. On Monday, the Public Health Ministry reported that Thailand had logged 10,470 new COVID-19 cases during the previous 24 hours. So far, 36 people have been infected in the fourth wave since January the 1st, 2022. The previous 24 hours saw 12 people die from the virus. And next, we should stop
Be happy.
Be happy, 10,000 mark. Okay, how about in Australia?
Oh, that's such a good news. Such a good news
Okay.
for me too, because Australia will welcome tourists and will open up their country now. So ever since COVID-19 hits, many of us might have missed the busy airports and excitement of planes landing in the new places. But for me, I'm very ready for a vacation. It's been 2 whole years since Australia has opened borders to welcome international visit. But now the country is ready to fully reopen to all vaccinated visa holders starting from February 21st. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced yesterday that in order to visit Australian, visitors must be double vaccinated to come to Australia. That's the rule that everyone is expected to abide by it. And Morrison said the government's definition was that people need to have a full course of vaccine. In most cases, the full course is 2 doses, but for some international vaccine, it's only 1. For example, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. He made it clear with a reference to the recent saga of the Novak Djokovic that even if people had the correct visa to enter Australia, if they were not fully vaccinated or had an exemption, they were allowed to enter, but unvaccinated travelers would still need to apply for a travel exemption to come to Australia and have to undergo hotel quarantine if they were granted permission to enter the country. Australia has been pursuing a staggered border reopening since late last year, allowing skilled migrants, international students, and backpackers to enter the country. The reopening represents the first time since March 2020 that people can travel to Australia from anywhere in the world as long as they are vaccinated. The tourism industry welcomed the decision, which comes 3 months before Morrison is due to face an election. The industry has relied on the domestic market that has itself been heavily impacted by movement restrictions. As for Qantas, Qantas Chief Executive Alan Joyce said that the announcement meant Australia was finally back open for business. Put it as, this is fantastic news for our people and our customers. So previously, the government shut the international border to everyone except Australian citizens and residents in March 2020 amid what was then the emerging coronavirus pandemic in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19 in Australia. The government has slowly begun to reopen certain countries and people, first with the New Zealand travel bubble and most recently allowing tourists from Japan and South Korea, along with some visa holders back into Australia. In Australia, around 2.4 million cases have been recorded in the country since the first Omicron case was detected in Australia in November. And until then, Australia had counted around 200,000 cases, with total deaths stand at 4,248 since the pandemic began.
I see. That's good news from Australia and also maybe good
Good
news
news for me
Thailand soon
too, so I can book my tickets.
to back to Australia.
Back to Australia. Yes, it's been like over more than 2.5 years, almost 3 years now that I haven't visited Australia at all. But I still keep in touch with my family over there. So, and that's it for today. Okay. And that's wrap up for today, our Voice of the Nation's morning news update. And I hope you enjoy our live program. But before we go, as usual, we will leave you with a music video for today. Kun Vitaya ka. This music video is from Kun Ram Kuruvanit, who is a Thai politician with Indian background. So he often seen with the Thai Sang Thai party. So in this music video, he sings in Chinese. He stated that this aims to between Thai people of Chinese descent and Thai people of Indian descent to get closer and to also promote the rights and liberties, equalities, and the the communities within the Kingdom of Thailand. So we will leave you with that. But now, so please stay tuned with us with the latest news and information from Thailand Premier English Language News Source, connecting Thailand to the world every Monday to Friday, starting from 8 to 9 a.m.
Allow live streaming to our website, nationthailand.com, Facebook, and other social media platforms. Don't forget to click like and share. I'm Vitaya Sangarun ครับ
And I am Nina Nirasha Malisa. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
我没忘记你，忘记我，连名字你都说，证明